Good morning to you, Lagos, Nigeria, wherever you are. Welcome to Dailies today, coming to you live from our audio-visual studios on Etimi and Crescent Victoria Island, Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Sheriff Quadry.
I'm Jimi Disu.
All right, so let's start taking a look at the headlines. But before we do that, let's hear a word from our sponsors, MTN Nigeria, and we will be right back.
Dailies today will be right back. Welcome back to Dailies Today. Dailies Today.
Dailies Today.
On 99.3 Nigeria Info.
And yes, we're back here in the studio. Let's begin with Dailies today. Remember that you can watch us online on our socials on Facebook, facebook.com/Nigeria Info FM on Facebook. Same goes for YouTube as well. Drop your comments there on our live streams on those platforms. Let's begin this morning. Let's start with the Vanguard newspaper, shall we? Banning FSAS. Other tactical units will not curb police brutality. IGP Arase.
Yeah, thank you. The weekend was agog. Social media was agog.
Right.
First of all, with the atrocities that these SARS people had committed. And then almost immediately, some people were happy that, they have been banned. I'm sorry, I wasn't that excited. People don't know what they're letting themselves in for. What has been banned, what for all intents and purposes, is a unit called SARS. Okay. These monsters are still within the police force, and they are not restricted to SARS. You see, the problem is quite fundamental. The training process, the growing process in a lot of our security, whatever outfits, breeds violence of this nature. Yes, I'm telling you. Because from scratch, everything is in disarray. Let me ask you a question. Which of the instructions of the IGP has ever been obeyed to the letter? Let me give you a very simple example. Do you know that it is very likely that half of the escorts you have roaming the streets with VIPs and so on and so forth are illegal? Every time the use of siren, for example, every time the IGP says it will be zero tolerance for
Right,
you see,
right.
we have
Right, and you still see them blowing sirens
law
everywhere.
and order has broken down completely. And it doesn't start and end with the police. It's a bit better with some of the forces. When was the last time you heard any problem with members of the Nigerian Air Force?
Right.
It's because of the way they are structured. Go to an Air Force barracks and go to a police barracks and you'll see the difference. So the police is a breeding ground. It's a breeding ground for this.
Why is it so, though? Why is it so difficult to reform the police?
It is so
totally?
because the origin, the development of the police over time has led to that. And don't forget that police have direct contact with criminals. There's a famous reggae, whatever, saying police and thieves. Look at the way these SARS people are dressed. Have you gone, when you've traveled all over the world, have you seen any responsible policeman dressed like that? Even FBI and all these other ones. Do you see them dressed in such a tattered and irresponsible manner?
It's quite embarrassing.
Quite embarrassing. And the IG saw all this. So why is he feigning surprise? It's what police have bred. So we need to go back to the drawing board. And I say that the solution to the police is not within the police. It is a structural problem. we would need, you see, because look, you have an IG, and then the man who supervises the IG himself is a former IG, same of same. My thinking is that you need to do a structural overhaul of the Nigeria police. You might have to weed half of them out of the system, retire them, and have a new breed of policemen.
Where are you going to get a new breed from? Are they really new?
You might have to start a new recruitment process over that. It's not going to happen overnight. This is something I would expect anybody who wants to run this country in 2023. It had better be part of his agenda to say that over 4 years, over a period of 4 years, this is what I'm going to do. Why did the president put an army colonel as head of the customs when he knew that the system had virtually broken down?
Right.
Why can't he do so likewise? There was a prime minister in the UK, I can't remember his name now. He brought a retired policeman from New York. When the police, when they were not up to the challenges that they were facing at that time. So it is time for as long as you have an inspector general from the rank and file, and the police service commission also from the rank and file, it will be same of the same. What should actually worry people more is that orders are never obeyed. Even when Obasanjo was president and he gave orders on the number of checkpoints you should have on the Lagos-Seme border, nobody obeyed him. Who obeys orders in Lagos here? You have a commissioner of police, ask him. Who obeys orders? Can he account for every single policeman he has under him? Does he know where they are? That's what Alasa is saying. He's here, and I agree with him. Can he account? A lot of people with escorts, vagabonds, all kinds of people with police escorts jumping all over the place, kicking people left, right, and center. Is that a police force? So it's not. I don't think if you just pick out SARS and you think that solution. No, that is the beginning of another problem, because what is going to happen now, they can be identified as SARS. If care is not taken, some of them will form little pockets. Okay, little pockets of what I would call civilian terrorists, making life difficult for people left, right, and center. We cannot continue to run our country as a racket. We need a president who will take a structural look at this country and say, over 4 years, this is what I'm going to do to the police. If I was going to run for president now, I'd be preparing it won't even be a manifesto, it will be a 4-year definite plan. That once you vote me in, 4 years, this is what I'm going to do with the police. 4 years, this is what I'm going to do with the economy. 4 years, this is what I'm going to do specifically with the CBN. 4 years, this is what I'm going to do with NNPC. We need that kind of brain ahead of us. But with this order, I mean, look at it. What did you do? It happened that you banned them.
Which wasn't the first time, by the way.
Which is it won't be the last.
It won't be the last,
a very simplistic approach. Very simplistic approach. I thought that the police, the IG on resumption also banned checkpoints. You still, as at this morning,
still find checkpoints.
As at this morning, 5:30, there was a checkpoint on Bode Thomas checking particulars. As at 5:30 this morning, there was a checkpoint checking particulars on Bode Thomas. So what are we? And they were not SARS. So we need to have a broader approach to this if we know that we intend to solve this problem that they have. The problem does not lie within the police.
Right.
It has to come from outside. Yes.
Let's move on to the Punch newspaper away from the Vanguard. Buhari lacks the powers to restructure Nigeria. I could say that from the Punch newspaper this morning. Yes.
Let me say again, because I saw one gentleman who said he was referring to my uninformed view on restructuring and so on and so forth. I'm not just going to fall for some mantra. Every day there is structuring going on in our lives. Today you are eating meat, tomorrow you don't eat meat, you eat fish only. So it happens even in the political circles. But a lot of these activists know the right approach, but they don't want to go through it. The right approach is that whatever you do has to be constitutional.
Okay.
This idea of having some conference, when you have a National Assembly, you understand, you cannot have an extra constitutional. I don't believe in such things. Some people will gather themselves, some VIPs, handpicked by people, gather themselves and determine. No, we must learn to go through the process. So what do I mean?
Yes,
For
what do
people
you
like Pandef, Afenifere, and so on and so forth, make sure that if there's nothing wrong in restructuring, let me get that one very clear.
Okay.
Indeed, restructuring goes on every day. But make sure that you put your people in the National Assembly. Make sure you get the buy-in, what you should be doing now. Instead of howling at President Buhari, who doesn't have the power to do so, you should be howling at your electorate. Get their buy-in to say that, look, this senatorial thing you want to do in election, for example,
Right.
In Lagos East, let us make sure that whoever is there believes in restructuring. And from there, you can start the process. It's not going to happen.
It's not
by-
something that will just happen
It's
because
not-
you snap your
it's
fingers.
Not gonna, no, people, our elite need to learn that.
But don't they
And
know?
activists,
Don't they know? Or they are just playing politics with the matter of restructuring?
Apart from playing politics, there's some economic advantage in some of these things, but I don't want to go down that route. But we don't want people heating up the polity when they know. You cannot. That's where I have also disagreed slightly with the distinguished senior advocate, Afe Babalola. That's whatever theories you might bring up, it cannot happen outside constitutional provision.
Very true.
It's unfortunate, but that is what it is. I would never again.
Maybe what they are saying is that if the president makes the move to show his, what do they call it, body language,
The president
and be disposed
leave
to
the president alone. You make that move. You have your senators. You have that. You see, that is why people must place a premium on who they vote into the legislature.
who represents them. House
Yes.
of Reps,
If you
the
feel
Senate.
all these Otumaki people, Pandef, all of them, go run for election. Go to the National Assembly. Don't just make noise on the pages of the newspaper, restructuring or this country will go to war because Adeboye had said so. Adeboye is entitled to his opinion. He's only one individual. He's only one voice.
Very true.
And I hate this idea where people would say, unless we have restructuring, this country will sink. This country is not going to sink anywhere. Because we have political differences doesn't mean that which country under the sun doesn't have political. Look at the challenge that America is facing. They're not going to sink. They're going to work their way around it. And we must learn to do that. And we must also at all times not behave like people in the animal kingdom, where violence is the solution to every problem. In our own case, it will be the beginning of a bigger problem. So I'd like people to change the rhetoric. You can advocate these things. I have no problem with it. But walk through the constitutional means and don't wait to think that hopefully you'll be handpicked. Because that's what some of them want. The last national conference that we had, there was somebody who was picked. I think he was in his 90s. He died within he was handpicked. His name was put forward. Why would you want to put a 90-something-year-old man if it wasn't for another reason? And of course, the man died before that happened. Somebody else had to pick, but the half of the money had gone. We leave that one. Our activists and so on are activists, for God's sake. You have a right, every right to want to propound your views and so on and so forth. But I think it is high time we start calling people out who would say, for example, unless this happens, Nigeria is going to sink. Nigeria is going to die. It's not. Nigeria is not going to sink. It's an ongoing process.
This is what Bola Akimbami is saying on Facebook. He says, Yakasei Stong, in cheek apology for Buhari's failure on restructuring is regrettable. Buhari can provide leadership for APC majority assembly to implement own manifesto on restructuring.
Look, Buhari is an individual. Fine, he's the president. People still don't get what a constitutional government is.
Right.
Buhari, whether he believes in restructuring or not, we can get it through. That is the first thing you need to know. There are provisions whereby even if you pass the bill and it's passed first, second, and whatever, and he doesn't assent to it, there are ways by which it can be forced on him because
Right.
Buhari is just one out of all Nigerians. So stop concentrating on making life uncomfortable for the gentleman. If you know that you're sure of what you're doing, go talk to your legislators. But they don't want to do that. Okay, and not every president is like some of the presidents we had before,
Right.
Who are so keen
Or maybe
on
it's
throwing.
maybe it's faster if the president had said, "Okay, my party, let's do this." Maybe it's faster that
You
way.
don't have a party,
than-
Sheriff. You don't have a party. What you have is a conglomerate of people with a common interest. We still don't have a party. What we don't have, we don't have. The APC is not a party. Look, the politics we are playing is not of parties. In an election, in less than 6 months, people swap the so-called parties.
Yeah.
Even if one of them left for the other one, I would understand. They practically swapped. Iyamu came to APC, Obaseki
That
went to
one's-
PDP.
yeah.
That's not party. We don't have a party. We need to say, at the end of the day, I've given these things a very, very deep thought. We need to be methodical in our approach. It's not going to happen by fiat.
No, it's not. It's not.
And our activists need to, imbibe the spirit of planning. You must plan and you must be patient. All they've been doing in the past 20 years is just to shout at the slightest opportunity, and the media laps it up. We want to structure in, we want to sovereign Nigeria, national sovereign, we want to structure in. Ask them how they want to go about it in reality. They'll come up with some warped idea. You look at them and say, is this guy serious?
Ooh, interesting. Let's get back to the Vanguard newspaper, shall we? Have this headline here. 11 parties collapse structures, adopt Jegede as consensus candidate.
This
there you go.
is a reflection of the kind of people that we are. This happens at almost every election. The purpose of having multi-parties is to have a wider spectrum of ideas and opportunities. But people don't want to grow. So what happens? You find that a lot of people who set up parties set it as a negotiating tool towards an election.
Right.
Why would I have a party? I've been running the party all along. If I was sincere, I have a gubernatorial candidate. Remember, elections are not run just so that you can win. You can run an election just so that you want your views known, you want to be visible, you want to be some kind of opposition, ideas and so on and so forth. But so these parties gradually over time have become parastatals of other parties. How can 11 parties collapse structure and adopt one man as candidate? It's only in Nigeria. We're playing.
And this happens a lot.
This happened. We lost a golden opportunity when that gentleman gave us the two parties. I wish we had stuck to it. Then we'd have none of this nonsense.
So you're in support of two-party system?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Because what we're having is a joke. In fact, you talk about two-party system. Right now in Nigeria, there is a no-party system. It's no-party system. If you want to run for office, you begin to look for where can I go. Okay, let me take
Come to think of it, back then when we had the two-party system,
Yes.
it was very rare. You could barely see anybody cross-carpeting at that time.
Yes, because the two parties, thankfully, it is sad. Now let me mention him by name in this particular instance. That the legacy that Babangida gave to Nigeria, he threw it away by himself. Something keeps telling me, you see, you will talk about multi-party system in other countries, but a country must develop its own democracy. And I think that being whipped into line into two parties was probably one of the best things that could have happened to us, at that time. But that's what suits us.
So what happens
Because
to
we had
somebody who doesn't share in the ideologies of those two parties?
Those two parties, he will have to find a way to fit in. Because look, you see, you have to look at the overall result. It's the free and fairest election we ever had.
Oh, well.
And there was no violence.
It was quite free.
There was no
It
violence.
was quite peaceful as well.
It was peaceful. But the same man who was the same man now who truncated it. Tofa didn't have any problem with Abiola's victory. When Abiola won in Tofa's whatever,
Right.
What happened is quite significant. Maybe that is what suits us. You don't have to follow the whole world. Some other countries have a one-party state.
We must
they get on well.
We must define our own type of democracy.
And I tell you, the party structure we had and the kind of election that we had where people line up, crude as it was, it worked.
Oh, yes.
It worked. It was the military that gave us that problem. It worked. Nobody said no. Everybody was happy. I don't know how many people went to tribunals way back then to overturn results, but it worked.
Let's quickly pick up another story this morning. Let's go back to the punch. I will continue pre-election cases against Obaseki Izeyamu. Is making that known. in the Punch.
In all honesty, my strong feeling is that Edo State has moved on. In fact, just this morning I was watching a video of the Oba hosting the PDP governors and so on and so forth.
Right.
And I think that Eze Iyamu should have chosen the path of being a statesman, congratulated Obaseki, licked his wounds, and gone back home to fight another day. This insistence on going with the case against Oba, it's within his rights. There's no doubt about that.
Okay.
But I just find it quite embarrassing that in Nigerian elections, every time after an election, somebody is going to tribunal, from there to appeal court to Supreme Court.
Spending money, time,
resources, not even letting the man concentrate properly. I mean, Obaseki now is going to be a bit jittery. He'll spend more time with his lawyers. He won't have time to concentrate on. And I think that at the end of the day, our leaders should always think of our people first. Eze Iyamu should think of Edo State first. By now, I expected him to have congratulated Obaseki, handed his manifesto over to him. Let's be gentlemanly and civil. Oh, Sheriff, you won the election. Congratulations. These are the things that you might find one or two things useful. You don't lose anything by doing that. You understand? But if this is the way he wants to go, so be it. But the Edo people have spoken.
Right.
Because you see, what he wants to do now is that he doesn't want to challenge the results. He wants to challenge Obaseki's eligibility. So according to what Elanet Silk said on one of my programs, sometimes you will now have judgments against a popular person, somebody who, because what the case now is that he wants to challenge eligibility. So if for example, Obaseki was not eligible, he cancels the election, does it mean he didn't get the popular vote? And then the normal rhetoric about politicians to say there was rigging, there was violence, they just trick each other. No, by now they should know that nobody's going to be believing such a story. Is there any politician? Do you know any politician that will not plan rigging at the time of elections? It's part of the game.
All right. Let's stay with the Vanguard this time. Buhari feels what Nigerians are going through. Shimbajo, it comes with a writer, says more palliatives coming. Yep.
Well, if the body language is anything to go by, Buhari doesn't feel what Nigerians. In fact, all of them don't feel what Nigerians are going through. And this idea of, I don't like the word palliatives. I think it's derogatory. That's mine. I'm not saying it is, but I see it as a derogatory word. Palliative is like some little handout to give to a baby to keep quiet. You know, when a baby is hungry, instead of you to give the baby feeding bottle, you give him this little teat, this feeder, just put it in his mouth.
Yes.
That's what I look. Asking people, you are going to give 300,000 people 30,000. That's not what we are talking about. We need a complete, when I say restructuring, I don't mean it in that political whatever, but we need an overhaul of the kind of governance that we are running. The wage, even the minimum wage approved, still cannot take people home. Right. So how do you help them? And how does it cover a problem? Because this idea of that recently I heard, you say, if you're SME, you can go and get 130,000 naira grant at a time when the child feeding money itself has found its way into other hands. At a time when the 700 and something thousand jobs are allocated to, you can't run a country like that. That is not palliative. That's an insult. So what is the government going to do? What are the things that are doable? Are you going to set up more health centers for free health up to a point? Are we going to have a kind of NHS that everybody benefits from? Are you going to subsidize transportation up to a point? Are you going to provide internet? For example, a developing country, I don't see why we can't have free internet 24/7.
Right.
For our young people.
Right.
Guarded internet. Get every local government to have guarded internet. Or hotspots for our people to help their education.
Yes.
Those are the kind of things we are talking about. Not all this palliative. I even hate the word. Anytime I see the vice president, I whisper to him, Jimi, I beg not to talk this palliative.
Let's pick up, another page. Let's move on to page 13. of the Vanguard newspaper, 2023, Igbo must be on same page to actualize ambition. Ezefe Kemachikwe.
I am one of those who will sleep well if we have an Igbo candidate in the next election for one of the major parties. I think it's just fair. But you see, election is not about being fair. It is simply a matter of numbers and negotiation. And that's why every opportunity I have, I like to tell my Igbo brothers that, look, you need to unite, okay? And I keep maintaining there are loads of candidates, loads of candidates that can fit the bill to run this country. After that, then it can be an open field. People will be saying that, why would you support the Yoruba aspiration? Look, I look at the larger picture. Obasanjo was there for 8 years as a Yoruba man. What did I get? Nothing. What did Yoruba land get? The road leading to Ota, where even he lives, was not that. I don't even think it's that as we speak. So it's not an issue of supporting one of your own. It's an issue of fairness. These people haven't been well treated. Let's be honest with ourselves.
Right.
They've been marginalized. Whether they cause the marginalization or not is another issue entirely, but they've been marginalized. And therefore, we must bring about some kind of balance. You see, Nigeria is a peculiar country, like other countries are also peculiar.
They have their own different challenges.
They have their own, different challenges. And look at what's happening in Black Lives Matter now.
Right.
What's going on in America.
Right.
So we must look at our problems and confront them with a bit of imagination.
Should Igbos start thinking strategically as against just demanding?
No, you cannot demand to be president. That is silly. How can you demand in a democracy? You don't demand. You negotiate. You plan. It was not by accident that you had two Yoruba candidates after the June 12 for the election that produced Obasanjo. It wasn't by accident. The Yorubas didn't demand anything. They didn't threaten anybody, thank God. If it was these current ones, now only God knows. That's why some of these tactics about we will form a Dudua Republic, I look at them and I say, look, unless there's more than meets the eye, this is not the way to go. But at the end of the day, what happened? You found two Yoruba candidates and you had to vote for one. So it's about being very, very strategic. Unfortunately, the elders who did all that way back, most of them are gone. They are gone now. And some people believe that these things can only be achieved by violence. But we know the game they are playing is usually for some economic considerations.
Let me take this comment from WhatsApp. James from Tony Street in Ikeja says, JD, to my understanding, he's only giving his opinion. He is not an authority. It is interesting to note that JD is advocating for someone outside the police to reform the police, and yet is strongly advocating the National Assembly to change the status quo that they are benefiting heavily from. I wonder what Odumakin did to JD. I wonder what Odumakin needs to do to appease JD. I believe, like Aragbeshola, this war on Odumakin from the same Oshun is purely personal.
No.
He thinks this is personal.
No, of course, I've never met the gentleman. I've never met him, and I don't have anything against him, but he's the spokesperson of the group. Yeah. So his name crops up.
Exactly.
So I need to make that absolute.
And he too is always in the news.
Yes, and he has a column. I read his column. He's a very intelligent fellow. I mean, so it's just in the role of him being the spokesperson that this issue has cropped up. And I wish people would stop ascribing. Look at the larger issue.
Yeah.
Okay, and not make some of us look in the process. In my sitting down here, I'm doing a paid job. I'm not a busybody.
Yeah.
People must realize that I'm not just
JD. You're being paid to do this.
I've been paid to do this. If I wasn't paid to do this, I won't be here.
Exactly.
So I'm doing my job.
It's your job.
If I wasn't doing it, somebody else will. Somebody else will be paid to do it. People need to understand these things, and also need to understand that some of the things, there is something you would say as an analyst would be different from something you would say if you are sharing a green bottle with your friend.
Yeah.
So people also need to understand that. Take me out of the equation. Look at the larger issue. The essence of these programs are to stimulate your thought, not to concentrate on one person. So there's nothing wrong. If I see Utuma again, I'll gladly shake hands with him and share a beer with him. I don't know if he's a beer drinker. I just remember that I'm not. I don't drink beer anymore.
What's coming up at 9?
Nah, keep it a surprise. Let's just keep
It's
it
a surprise?
Well,
Okay,
it's
so-
not much, but let's just keep it a surprise.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that. Jimmy, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very
around.
much, Sharif. I'll
All
see you
right.
tomorrow. God
See you
willing.
tomorrow. Lagos, join Jimmy Disu at 9 o'clock for Daily Digest. He says it's a surprise, so I can't wait to see that. Let's go in now for the news. After the news, we'll be talking mental health on the Crossfire. Stay here.